Wonderful. Well, thank you for having us both. I'm very honored to be presenting with Caroline on the presentation of 6 dimensions of wellness. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. The dimensions that we're covering today in slide 2 is going to be 6 dimensions. And I want to share that with you that there are a lot of different dimensions models out there. And so if you're really interested, you can go online and search the different dimensions. There's some that have 8 and some that have 12. And so there's different ones, but this is the one that we've really used as the pillar of education at UIW for the last over a decade. And we utilize these as the tenets of what we focus on at the Wellness Center at the University Incarnate Word. So those 6 dimensions are physical wellness, intellectual wellness, occupational and purposeful wellness, spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, and social wellness. So we're going to be covering all these in detail today. And we go and go to the next slide. But as we roll through these dimensions, I really want to share with you that one of the ways to look at the dimensions of wellness is regarding like a wheel, like a bicycle wheel, and that the hub is that centerpiece, which is you yourself, that red dot in the middle, and then the blue spokes that are going out towards the green circle. Those are spokes that formulate the dimensions. So those are all of our dimensions. And then the outer ring is our optimal wellness. That's the tire, the wheel that circles around the tire. And that is what we're striving for, that optimal wellness. The piece that we want to really keep in mind as we're focusing on this presentation is that we want to focus on the strength of our spokes and not the length of the spokes. We really want to focus on that these spokes are all equally in length. And so with that being said, we can kind of come to a concept that we all may have a different size wheel, but what we're really striving for and our goal is that our wheel rolls efficiently and strongly and round and smoothly down the road. And so we may have different size wheels, but we're always focusing on moving our wheel to a larger dimension as we go through to find optimal wellness. Next slide, please. So when we're doing the presentation, you can take a point of reference of 3 points. The most important one is you yourself. We have to take care of ourselves before we could ever take care of anyone else. The second point there is that we do focus on other people and want to make sure that we have servitude in our life and that we can serve others and provide them with their wellness. And then the third piece there is individuals with disabilities. And I always share this piece because it's important to understand that individuals with disabilities may have different needs and accommodations may need to be met so that they can help. We can help them meet their needs in the dimensions of wellness. The second component we cover is that wellness is really, complete wellness is never really achieved. It's something we're always striving and working towards. So we don't want to always just set a goal like I want to be well. It is a fictitious thing that like we have to strive towards, and it's never really totally completed. We're always striving towards having better wellness. So keep that in mind as your concepts are developing. And then the third component is that wellness is dynamic, but yet it's holistic. Dynamic meaning that you may have a very well-rounded level of wellness, but an allergy infection can happen. And then all of a sudden, some aspects of your dimensions may be affected. But that doesn't mean that you have to stay in that static state. It's dynamic. We come and we wax and we wane and move through our wellness. And it's holistic. It's holistic in the aspect that it involves all of our dimensions working together so that we can create that fluid, efficient wheel that's rolling down the road. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. So as we dive into the dimensions, the first one we're going to talk about is physical wellness. And one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is that when they think of physical wellness, they think of exercise only. And that is a huge part of it. And it is a very big part of it. Our cardiovascular fitness is very important in our lives. But I want you to also think about physical wellness as being as your whole total being. God gave us one unique and beautiful body to work with for all of our lives, and we have to take care of that. So what's really important is these 3 points here is that your posture, your mental health, our medical health, and your nutrition. So that your posture is really important, that we make sure that we have good sitting, standing posture, that you're wearing the correct shoes for the different types of activities that you're doing, so we can take care of our joints and our skeleton. And when it comes to medical health, we need to take into consideration that medications can affect our dimensions of wellness and the aspects of our different components of those dimensions. So as we ingest medicines, they do affect our digestive system, our sleep patterns, and different things that we're going to talk more about in a little bit. But keep in mind that those medical things are fluid for a lot of us. They come in, we get a sinus infection, we may be on an antibiotic or some type of medicine for a little period of time, and then we get off of it. For some other people with medical conditions, you may have to get on a medication and stay on it for a period of time. And at that point, we really suggest that you talk these over with your doctor so that you can share with him or her what your aspects are that you're trying to focus on, all your dimensions, so that you can encounter and put that into your aspect of your lifestyle. And the last one there is nutrition. It is a very, very big part of our lives, and it's a huge part of our society. And the aspect that I really share with people is that nutrition is fuel so that we can fuel our bodies, so that we can perform the activities in our lives that we want to participate in. So it's really important that you understand the type of fuel that you're putting in your body, and the amount of fuel you're putting in your body, and then the times when you put the fuel into your body. So these are three very key components with regard to nutrition. So keep that in mind. And there are other dimensions out there that have nutrition as one of the dimensions itself. So you may, if that's an area that you want to research more, you may want to look at some of those other dimensions that go into greater depth of nutrition itself. Next slide, please. Our second component we're going to cover is intellectual wellness. And so this is that aspect of the part of your body that we stimulate our brain with learning and knowledge. And so typically the brain is broken down into two different types of characteristics. Those are right brain and left brain. We've all heard of these in the classrooms and things, but the aspect that I want to share with you is that we all probably agree that we're dominant with one side, left or right. But one of the aspects that I love to share with people is that doesn't mean that you're stuck in that side. And you can actually work and develop that other side that's not as strong or dominant as your side that you were born with. So you can continue to work on those other sides. And as well, I want you to understand that there are different scenarios in life when one side of the brain, right or left, will be more dominant for different types of situations that you encounter in life. So just because you may be left-sided or right-side dominant doesn't mean that that's how you are all the time in every aspect and situation in your life. Next slide, please. The other really key component that we need to understand is that in intellectual wellness, there are various different types of learners. And so you can read through these and see visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. Those are the three main types of learners that we relate to learning styles in our society. And you can probably identify more with one of those. I myself am more the third, the kinesthetic learner. I love to work and learn by doing with my hands. But see which one you best fit into. But the other aspect that you need to understand is that most of our education system caters to the first two, visual learners and auditory learners. So it does not mean that a kinesthetic learner cannot learn in a visual and auditory setting. It just means that they may struggle with that type of setting a little bit more than someone that's more dominant in visual and auditory learning. So we need to be understanding of that, because first we need to understand how we learn best, and then be respectful of other people around us and how they learn. So if you're in a supervisory position and you're trying to supervise in one of these particular styles, it may not be as effective with other people. So we need to be open to those. The other part that I'd like to share is that of these three learning styles that we see all the time and we're very comfortable with, there is a lot of new research and science that's been going on that identifies a lot of different learning styles, new learning styles that are coming and evolving. There's some models that have 7 and 8 different learning styles. And I've even seen some that have up to like 14 to 17 different learning styles that they're trying to identify. So this is definitely a science that's going to evolve more over the next decade, and we're going to be able to identify more of how people best perform and learn. Next slide, please. Occupational and purposeful wellness. So this is the aspect of, in some of the dimensions of wellness models that you see out there, they focus more on occupational, like ergonomical wellness. And so your working environment and the areas that you perform. What we try and really focus more on is your purpose and meaning in life with your occupational wellness. And so what I mean by that is that, do you find meaning and purpose in your jobs that you do, whether that be your paid job, your volunteer job, or your duties and responsibilities in your home with your family and friends and neighbors? So these are really critical aspects, because if you think about the amount of time during the day that you spend in your occupational wellness, it is a great portion of your life. So we must find value within these occupational wellness areas. I really strive in my own self, in my own goals and stuff, to always try and find servitude in what I do in all my jobs, whether it be through pay or non-paid, as well as my own kids. There's a lot of servitude, but that is a very important thing for me to do. Next slide. Now turn it over to Caroline. Gabby, I think you have to unmute her. I believe she got muted.
Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate the collaboration on this presentation. I do want to remind everyone that if you have any questions about anything that Scott covered, anything that I'll cover in the next few slides about the dimensions of wellness, I'll invite you to please share them with us. This time together is both us sharing our perspectives, what we would like to share with you, but with understanding that you may have questions, perspectives, other things that maybe we are not so clear about, or that pop up in your head as we go through this. So don't forget that that opportunity is there. So what I'm going to cover next moves us from sort of the physical, the occupational, the intellectual, into kind of a big topic. And I say big because it is all-encompassing. And this is a good reminder that while the image that we saw at the very beginning about the wheel and the spokes in the wheel and the blue lines that are dividing whether it's 8, 14, 17 dimensions of wellness, it is all within the understanding that we divide them in order to dissect them, in order to look at them individually, to get wrap our brains around it. But in truth, they are overlapping, interconnected, irreducible. And so when you focus on 1 or 3, you really are affecting all of them, no matter how many are in the count. So in spiritual wellness, this primarily starts with working toward a practice in which you can come to each and every day, naming, identifying, sensing, feeling that your life has a meaning, that your life has a purpose, bigger and beyond any little thing you do that you judge right or wrong or neutral. There is a meaning and a purpose to every individual's life. And it is a practice, a daily practice, to really get in touch with that and get a sense of what that is. And that is really a motivator, a fire that will carry you through the ups and downs of life. The second item that I wanted to express with this spiritual wellness is that there is a place and I don't want to say a benefit, because it's not so much a benefit, but there is a place, there is a role, there is something that happens to each and every human being when we cultivate a relationship with the divine. Whatever we call that, the divine, a higher spirit, our higher self, with God, this understanding that we are spiritual beings and we are inseparable from that creator, that with all the creation, with each other. But it does take nourishing that relationship, like any great relationship. And religion, though, is one approach to spiritual wellness. Many people do find a path to life's meaning and purpose and building and nourishing a relationship through the practice of various world religions, but it is one approach. There are multiple. Next slide. Emotional wellness begins with acknowledging your emotions, and that your emotions are your truth in any one moment in time. It's very normal to have an emotion, acknowledge the emotion, and then judge it as being positive or negative or flat or hateful, or however we want to judge it. When we frame that as that is how I feel right now, with the understanding that it is okay, it's normal, but the right now changes from moment to moment. So starting first with acknowledging that truth. The other thing to understand is that stress and conflict aren't necessarily bad. They can be our teachers. But holding on to the stress, holding on tightly to conflict, that's a choice. We may find ourselves in stressful or conflictive situations. And beyond those moments, though, some of us have a tendency of holding on to them, ruminating, never letting it go. That can cause longer term issues beyond just a moment to moment experience. I encourage you to be curious about your thoughts and your feelings, so that we come to an understanding that our thoughts and feelings change. They change according to our lived experience. They change according to what we decide is our story or our narrative about ourselves or about the world outside of ourselves. So what I say about curiosity is be curious enough to explore your thoughts and feelings. It is very beneficial to each of us to hold an approach to life that is based on reminding ourselves that we're human. We have all sorts of quirks and weird things that we do or feel. Constantly remind yourself to be compassionate but responsible for yourself and to yourself. And that will keep us in a very grounded space, so that we don't get caught up in self-blame, or where we're blind and deaf to maybe some things that we can change and improve. And then that is the being flexible. Nothing is static. The universe is not static. We are not static. So be open to change and flexibility. Next slide. These are some emotions that can affect our feeling of wellness. We have worry, anxiety, and fear, depression and despair, anger and hostility, grief and bereavement, feeling lonely or feeling insignificant in the world. Scott day before yesterday, shared a very cool way of approaching this discussion which I'll leave you with and I'll share with you. For every one of these words up here, what is its opposite? Maybe choose two out of these words in which you hold whatever its opposite is in your mind. If you can get to that opposite word, that antonym to these words, even just one, that is proof to yourself that it is possible to feel differently, that you don't need to stay static or subjugated or be held hostage, so to speak, by any of these words that can feel like you are being held down. So I encourage you to cultivate the opposite of all of this. This will come no matter, it's part of life. Cultivate the opposite in your life. Next slide. And this is, I believe, our last slide, social wellness. While the title is about social wellness, living as part of a community, being a part of a group, more than just ourselves, it begins with us, with each individual person. Know that your truest, highest version of yourself has meaning, and you have a purpose for being in this world right now. And every moment is an expression of your purpose and of your meaning. Use that as a mirror to check in with yourself. Is what I'm doing now, is what I'm saying now, is what I'm living now, is what the choices I've made now aligned with my meaning or my purpose? Or is there something about it that I need to rethink? Okay. I have a few sort of ways that you may work on this meaning and finding purpose to build your higher self or continuously develop your higher self. Expect more of yourself, but by the same token, expect less of others. Why do I say that? I'll tell you. I say that because you can't control anybody else. You have no dominion over any other person, no matter what coercion or manipulation you try to employ. Ultimately, you don't have control over anyone else. So expect less of the other, but expect more of yourself. Let go of masks and untrue stories. In other words, develop your authentic self. Feel what that feels like to be your authentic self. Maybe let go of stories that you've created that aren't helpful to you anymore. Maybe at one time they were, not anymore. Be a teacher in the life journey of other people. Live with curiosity and make friends with risk. Define enough in your life. When we stop to think I have enough, I am enough, we can stop chasing things. Be it an attitude, something real in our workplace, money, status. Define enough for yourself. Accept that you are connected to all that is. You're connected to all that ever was. And you are connected now to everything that comes after you. So I encourage you to participate and continuously create communities that share and inspire the opposite of fear. However you define the opposite of fear for yourself. Be part of creating that energy, of creating that space for yourself, and as part of being a member of society. So I'll leave you with those.
Thank you, Caroline. That was wonderful.
Thanks,
it was a very great opportunity to present to you all. We'll turn it back over to Lisa so that she can host us and give us some questions.
Okay, we do have a few questions here. The first question is, what is the best way to balance the dimensions of wellness in the time of COVID-19? I think both of you can allude to that question.
Yeah, Caroline, would you like to go first, Caroline?
I'll let you start.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that when COVID happened to us all, you know, it's been, I guess, what, 4 months now. I think it's really important to understand that our norm, our reality was really shaken up. And so we're in this process right now of redefining what our norm is and what is our lifestyle. And so we've gone through a phase where we worked at home, and we're trying to set up that environment to an environment now. For myself, I feel it's like we're in meetings all day long, Zoom meetings and answering emails, and I sit more at a desk than I've ever sat in the last 15 years of my life working. So we have to redefine what that is. And so it's really important at this point, probably more than ever, that we really focus back on all the 6 dimensions and make sure that we're putting aspects of those 6 dimensions into our lives every day, 7 days a week. And so we really, one of the strategies that I really focus on is trying to make time for those. And it's not the quantity of time that you put in, it's the quality of time that you put into those aspects. So, you know, there's little strategies and things that you can do, but just taking a break from the computer, shutting the monitor off for 2 minutes and just saying a prayer, or just having some spiritual or some meditation time, and just standing up from your desk and stretching your physical being, and getting the blood flowing through all your veins and organs and arteries and everything. Get the blood flow. So there's different strategies we can work and implement into our lives. The other thing that I really focus to tell people is find structure right now. It's hard because we've been thrown up and, you know, like into the air of our schedules and stuff, and then we're trying to reestablish those, and it's always changing. Are we going back to work? Are we in phase 1 or phase 2? So everything is always flexible and changing, fluid right now around us, but it is important for us to find a good sleep schedule, a good eating schedule, a good snacking schedule, a good hydration schedule, a good exercise schedule, socialization, your spirituality, without going to church. Where are you finding your spirituality and inspiration and guidance in your life right now? So making those a part of your routine, scheduling those things for yourselves, and keeping to your schedule. It is important that you take care of your own wellness, again, so that you can serve others. You can do your job, I promise you, much better if you take care of yourself first. Caroline, did you want to add anything?
I'll add to that. I appreciate all the very practical and actionable ideas that you shared. I think it's very true, and I agree. I would add that, again, in this time of, we don't know what's going on or what's going to happen, we didn't anticipate it. Understand that we've never had control, but right now this lack of control feels even maybe a little scary, feels unsafe, feels like we're just, you know, what can I rely on? And that's a normal feeling. And so that's the way it is. This is our reality in this moment. One place that we can go to find a little more stability, to find a little safety, is inside of ourselves. And in doing so, I would encourage you to use this sort of time of going in, because outside of us is a little nuts. Go inside and see, are there 1, 2, 3 dimensions that in particular are a little bit more of a priority, or for you to work on, or maybe something you really think that this would just help in my overall well-being if I paid a little more attention to this. So do that self-assessment. You can do it, as Scott said, by being a little meditative in prayer or sitting with a little serenity. There are actual tools online of how to assess your wellness. If you want some help on, all right, I don't know which one to pick or which one to start with first, there are assessment tools online that you can go to help figure that out. And I would end with, start with, instead of like, I'm going to do this new thing and add it to my life, start with an attitude of, okay, how can I incorporate something new into my life that is helpful, that doesn't feel like yet another thing I need to do from, another thing I need to do, but that can be part of a routine you already do. One of the examples I give to nurses a lot is the idea of breathing, just starting with finding your breath. And one of the ways you can incorporate that is in the shower or in the bath. Just take a series of 9 breaths, just because I like multiples of 3. 9 breaths. Breaths of where you're aware of where that inhalation is, where that exhalation goes. And that helps to sort of bring you in, bring you grounded. And it doesn't feel like just something else you need to add to your plate.
Lisa, if I could add one more point to that. As Caroline was talking about the emotions, it's very easy to have anxiety in this time and frustration. And so a lot of these negative emotions are evolving and actually multiplying to a different level than we may have not experienced before. And so I challenge you all to step back and look and see the big picture. One of the things that I've been trying to share with people is that it has been a blessing to spend time with my family for these past 4 months, time that I did not have before, and I did not make the time before. And so it's almost like someone had said to me one time, this was God's way of resetting everything for us, to kind of step back and say, find what's important in your life and focus on that. And so I want to share that with you, that you can get caught up in the negative news that we see all around us. You can get caught up with negative comments from other people, or the frustration that your life is not the same as it was before. But at the same point, as Caroline talked before, if you look to the other side of that spectrum, you will find goodness and grace all around you that you have probably been closing your eyes to. So take those moments and realize that COVID, although it has been stressful and challenging for all of us, and we do not know what the future holds for us, it has also been a blessing to us. So find those blessings in your lives.
Thank you both for answering those questions in your wise words. We're going to take final questions on chat. Those of you that are watching us, and those on Facebook Live, if you have any more questions for us. I know there were a couple of others. Y'all spoke a little bit about, what you do when you're working from home and you're sitting at your desk all the time, but there were some more specifics about nutrition. How do you, especially when you have the refrigerator maybe 10 feet from you, and you are sitting, your legs get tired, or you're afraid to go out. What are some specific things that you could do nutrition wise or exercise wise that'll help you through this?
There's a common phrase going around right now called the COVID 15. It's the 15 pounds that we put on in the first 3 months of COVID. So, but Caroline, do you want to go first and address that this time?
I laugh because, did I submit that? That comment I might have. I would say, and this is actually what I'm about to share is something I actually have done, is shop with purpose, meaning grocery shop with purpose. And meaning the purpose is to enjoy my food because I love to eat. I don't cook, but I love to eat. But understanding that if I have it at hand, if I have it in my refrigerator, if I have it in my cupboard, I'm going to eat it. So shop mindfully, shop with a purpose of choose well, choose things that are nutritious, choose things that I really enjoy, but, you know, in moderation. So if I don't have it handy, then I'm not gonna just like, I think I'm gonna get up and get some more of that. So as just sort of a practical idea, bring into your home food that is nutritious so that you are nourishing yourself as your home. And so if it's not brought into your house, then at least that temptation, that immediate gratification, that temptation might not be so accessible to you.
Wonderful. Very good points. Very, very good points. I would share, to complement what you're saying there, Caroline, I would share that, remember, as we talked about in the presentation, that the fuel we put into our body, the food that we put into our body becomes our fuel for our activity level and stuff. One of the presentations that we're going to be doing this month for the Employee Wellness Lunch and Learn is on calorie consumption. And that the concept is, I can share with y'all the overall concept real quick. It's essentially a pendulum. So if you're consuming more calories than you're burning throughout the day, then you're going to gain weight. It's a simple strategy or a concept. If you're consuming the amount of calories that you're burning throughout the day, then you're going to maintain and stay where you're at. The only way that you can get into a deficit is to have your activity level be higher than your consumption level with activity. And so those are the things that we look at. Overall, that's a very basic way of looking at calorie consumptions, but it's very accurate in the most part. So the ideology is that if we are sitting for 8 to 10 hours a day, we are not moving and burning calories like we were when someone had said before, like they were walking to and from office spaces and things like that. So we have to integrate those into our lifestyle. So one of the presentations that I did back in May for Employee Wellness was talking about strategies we can implement into our lives to help to burn those calories. And one of the things that I tell people is, when you have a glass at your desk, when you have a glass at your desk, you're going to hydrate more because it's available to you. So you're drinking water. Don't have sugar waters there, have water. The other thing is that make yourself get up and go as far as you can to the sink. So if you have to go all the way downstairs to the kitchen to get water, you just went up and down a flight of stairs. So you're moving more. Don't just keep a pitcher of water and just refill your glass or something, or keep several bottles at your desk. Make strategies into your life where you have to get up and go. Go down the street and check the mail. I mean, you have the ability, in the most part, to schedule yourself for most of your meetings. I know some meetings are standing meetings, but you have the ability to put breaks within your day. And that is your right as an employee, to have breaks throughout your day. So you need to take those breaks for yourself so that you can go and walk, go and get yourself some healthy snacks. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I've never eaten a Snickers bar or candy or anything, or ice cream or something. I enjoy candy. I love it. I exercise so I can eat what I want to eat most of the time. The older I get, the harder it gets to do that. But anyways, that's a side story. The point is that reward yourself, but do it in modesty and stuff. You know, I am not the person to sit here and tell you do not have snacks and sweets or anything like that. But do it in moderation. You know, schedule yourself. We are a very obese society in the United States. We have gotten ourselves into that state because of our conveniences in our lives. And so we have to be more disciplined in our lives and be role models for our children and the next generation. And so if you implement some of these strategies into your lives, I think you'll start seeing some changes.
Thank you both. I do want to add to that. You know, we're talking about body, mind, and spirit. And this is a good opportunity to learn new things, maybe learn a new language or learn an instrument that you've always wanted to play, or, you know, take the dogs for walks, or, you know, learn a new recipe, start a blog or a vlog, whatever they're called nowadays. But I want to thank you both for sharing your expertise. And on the next slide, we have resources that both Scott and Caroline have shared with us. We also have their LinkedIn profiles that was shared in the chat section, and I believe we have that on a slide as well. So we will have this all available, and please take advantage of those resources. They are invaluable. And this,
Thanks for having us.
you're welcome. And if there are no further questions, we thank you all for joining us on our third virtual Red Talk. Stay safe and be well.